My newest favorite obsession is listening to a romantasy book while I'm playing games on my Switch. Like, cozy little games and a fantasy romance book go like hand in hand in my opinion. So I figured I'd put together a list of my favorite fantasy romance audiobooks because I do not think that every fantasy romance audiobook is a good one. There are some out there that I'm like, this is questionable, but here are my favorite ones and just ones that I would overall recommend for you to listen to. Let's start with my newest obsession, the Spark of the Everflame, the Kindred's Curse saga. I read book 1 and then I listened to book 2 and 3, and the audiobook for this is impeccable. I can't imagine reading these books physically anymore. After I listened to the audiobook and the narrator, like, I can't imagine this character any other way besides this voice, and it worked really well. I think that the narrator helped age DM up a little bit. I struggled with her tone in book 1, and so I think listening might have helped me because I was reading her a lot younger than the audiobook narrator makes her out to be, but I think she's supposed to be the audiobook narrator's age, not what I was reading her as. So I really enjoyed the audiobook for this. It's so well produced. I wish I had listened to the first book as well. Like, I regret reading this one physically. That's how well I think the audiobook does. And I am primarily someone who thinks that I always like a book better physically read. Like, I love audiobooks. I listen to a lot of audiobooks, but I will always say that I give more time and attention to physical books, so I tend to like them better no matter what. And that's not the case on this series. I wish I had listened to book 1 because listening to book 2 and 3 was such an amazing experience for me. Essentially, in this world, the gods came and they fell in love with humans, but they didn't want to outlive the humans. They didn't want to just like watch their beloved companion pass away, so they bound their life to their mortal companion, meaning when that person died, they would die as well, which left their children in charge, the Descended. However, over years and years, the Descended have kind of forgotten about mortals. They think they're better than them. They think that they have more power, which means that they're more elite and that the humans don't deserve what they'd get and all of this stuff, and they just kind of forgotten about them and treat them very poorly. So we follow DM, who is a mortal in this world. Her mother has told her time and time again, do not go near the Descended, have nothing to do with them, you are not allowed to talk to them. But when her mother goes missing, DM takes up the mantle that her mother played, which was the Descended healer. Essentially, the Descended call for human healers when there's something magic can't fix, because all they know is magic. That's all they do. So, DM ends up not listening to her mother and getting along quite well with some Descended. There is a lot of epic world building to this story. I think that this series is going to be the next big series. Like, the way the world expanded in book 2 and book 3, impeccable. If you struggled a little bit with book 1, don't worry, because I did too. But book 2 and 3, absolutely amazing, incredible. I cannot wait for the finale of this. It's going to be the next big romantasy, and I highly recommend the audiobook. Next up, we have A Court That's Cruel and Lovely by Stasia Stark. This one is just so fun. I giggled my way through this book. I've listened to the audiobook of both 1, 2, and 3 of this and enjoyed them all. I think that they add life to the characters. Really enjoyed them. This is such a fun time read, so it's really like a wonderful experience, I think, putting on the audiobook and just like doing something else and giggling along to it. Like, I don't know, like, it just brought life to my experience. This story follows our main character who grows up in a world where when you're a baby, you give your magic away to the gods. And on a select birthday, I think it's 24, but don't count me on that, soldiers from the king come to give your magic back to you. However, if it turns out you had your magic the entire time, this means something's wrong with you, and they kill you and your entire family on the spot. Of course, our main character has had her magic this whole time, and her birthday's coming up soon, so she has to figure out a way to escape to save her family. And while on the run, she meets a mercenary. And while on the run, she meets a group of mercenaries, and their destination aligns, and so they decide to work together because they want something out of her, and she wants the protection they bring. And there is a one-horse scene in this that had me literally cackling. It's incredible, amazing. I enjoyed it so much. I just had so much fun. Like, I'm blushing just talking about this book because I just remember being like so in it and having such a fun time with this series. So I highly recommend the audiobook. It's such a good one. Next up is Blood Mercy by Villa Roth. Of course I had to talk about this. I mean, they're all sitting right here beautifully. This has a well produced audiobook. I actually don't think I would have made it through this book without the audiobook. I love this book. I've loved this series. It is a bit of a descriptive, heavy, lyrical writing style. It feels a little bit more classic-y, a little bit like Regency, but the narrator does such, both of them, there's 2 narrators in this, they do such a beautiful job at narrating this story that like I just kept listening and was like, I can't turn this off because it's so beautiful. This book is beautiful. In this, we're following Leo and Cassia, who come from different species. She's human and he is a Hesperine, which is a vampire. Their species do not get along. They are inherently enemies, but every couple centuries they come together to reform their truce so that they're not like hurting each other. This time they're coming to reform their truce, and Leo and Cassia meet and they kind of start talking, and they realize maybe not all is bad between their species and they're a little bit misunderstood, and it's so sweet. Their romance is so sweet. Leo is a cinnamon roll. I literally adore him. He's so cute, and the way he speaks about Cassia, impeccable. Every man should talk about their females the way he talks about them. It's so good. And yeah, the audiobook for this is just like beautiful. Like I don't even know how else to explain it. Like their voices fit these characters so well, and it's so well produced. So please pick this one up. It's a long chunky boy. Like it's a long book. The series is long, but it's filled of epic world building. There's vampires, but it's set on another world. Like it's not set on Earth. It's set on like a fantasy world. So it's very high fantasy. It's so epic in scale. Like I love this series. Next up we have Slaying the Shadow Prince by Helen Schuer. I need to just put a disclaimer that I don't love the audiobooks for the Legend of Thesmar series. That series starts with Blood and Steel, and these are companion novels to each other. Blood and Steel, the audiobook didn't really work for me. I didn't like the narrators for either POV very much. I didn't think they fit the vibe. They made the main character feel way too young in my opinion. So I don't recommend these audiobooks. But Slaying the Shadow Prince, which is a standalone within that world, I loved the narrator for. I loved the audiobook for. I can't imagine not listening to it. It was perfect. It fit the character so well, and I flew through it so much because of the audiobook. Like I read this in literally like 3 hours and just listened to the audiobook. Probably not 3 hours, but I read it in one sitting. It's so good. In this, we're following our main character, Drew, who lives in a world where women aren't allowed to wield blades. However, she lives kind of off the beaten track, and in her village, she does wield a blade. They don't really care about the king's ruling, and he's never there to check anyways. And Drew's entire mission in life is to take down the shadow race that have been killing her land. So she is peak warrior with her blade. And Talamir Starling shows up. He is a warsword of the realm, which is essentially like elite warrior, and they meet. However, the thing is, Talamir has a secret. He is half shadow wraith, and Drew knows his secret, and she's going to take down all the shadow rays. So that's going to lead to some issues as they start to get quite familiar with each other. I loved Drew. I thought she was a perfect female main character in this book. She's spunky and she's got sass, but she also can be kind and caring, and she was well trained, so she like had the ability to back up what she was saying. She wasn't just some like female being like, oh, I'm gonna beat you. She actually could beat you. And I really enjoyed this book. It's one of my favorites, 5 stars. The audiobook is incredible. Please listen to it. Next up, I have the Lady of Darkness series. I've read the first book. I actually didn't love this book. However, I think the audiobook is really good, and I know a lot of people who do love this series, so I wanted to recommend it here for the audiobook fans, because I don't think I would have gotten through this book without the audiobook. I think it was really well done. How the characters were portrayed made a lot of sense in this, so I really would suggest the audiobook for this series. So I did want to put it on this list, even though it's not like a new favorite series of mine. In this, we're following Scarlet, who is an assassin. She's a part of this like assassin trio, but she's kind of given up on the assassin life. Scarlet has gone back to her old life, but the assassin lord wants her back and keeps offering her deals. This last deal is something that she cannot say no to, because all she's ever wanted was revenge on whoever killed her mother, and if she kills this one person for the assassin lord, he will tell her who killed her mother. So how does she say no to that? Except for that things have gotten a little murky and she does not want to kill this person. This feels very like fantasy over romantasy in my opinion. I want to say like Throne of Glass vibes, where it's not like romance heavy, it's like fantasy heavy, like YA fantasy style, where like the romance isn't the main part, but it is a big part of the story. But like, I wanted more scenes between the two love interests in this for sure. And then we have the Stars and Shadows series by Holly Renee. This is another series that I read and I gave 3 stars. Like, it's not an all-time favorite, but I thought the audiobook was really fun and I really liked how it was produced. This one has 2 narrators, and the narrators will speak in the other POVs. So when you're with the female in her POV, when the male character talks, you will hear the male narrator, which does not always work for me. Sometimes I find it really like jarring when I'm listening to an audiobook and I'm like, oh, a male now. But in this one, I felt like it really worked, and it really like had me feeling the characters a little bit, especially because this book is not like the most in-depth story. Like, it's very fast burn and a lot of smut. I think without that act of hearing the two characters all the time, I feel like I wouldn't have understood their characters as well, but I thought the two narrators did a really good job together. They feel like they fit very well together. Like, their lines in a conversation back and forth felt like a real conversation between two people. It didn't feel like pre-recorded lines then were stuck together. Like, they were definitely playing off each other, and so I really enjoyed that. This story is about our main character, who is Starborn. She essentially has magic, and the prince wants her magic, and he can get her magic by marrying her and drinking her blood and taking her power. He's not very nice. Neither is his mother. However, his brother? He's very nice. We very much like him. And so they hit it off, and they start meeting, but they have to sneak around because no one can know that you're with your brother's fiance. So yeah, I did really enjoy this one. I thought it was interesting with the two POVs talking to each other. I really thought it was well produced. If you know any good fantasy romance audiobooks, leave them down below for me. I would love to check more out. I'm always looking for more. If you'd like to stick around a little bit longer, I'll put another fantasy romance recommendation for you on the screen right here. And if you'd like to leave me an emoji just to say you were here, leave me a croissant emoji, and have an absolutely remarkable day.